Hey guys, it's me and today I'm here to talk about my favorite books of 2021. Just to make it easier on myself, I will just be like popping up picture on this side. But yeah, these are 10 books that I absolutely adored in 2021. Basically how I made this list was to just like copy paste every single 5-star book in like a document and then like take out rereads, and I also have a rule of only one book per series. So I did that, and then I just like filtered out which ones I thought were like my favorites, because you know there's 5 stars and like favorites, you know. And I ended up with a top 10 list, which I feel like is the last year. I don't remember how long my list was last year, but I'll leave that link down below so you can go watch it as well. I have 10 books that I read all over the year, so let's just get into them. These are in the order that I read them in, because if I had to rank these, I would die. So yeah, starting off with Radio Silence by Alice Oseman, which was the first book I read in 2021, so immediately a hit. Basically, I just heard like amazing things about Alice Oseman, and then in 2019 I picked up Loveless, and I also started reading Heartstopper, and I fell in love. And then I got Radio Silence for my birthday, and I immediately knew like this is gonna be my first read of the new year, because like this is Alice Oseman's like most acclaimed book. I feel like Heartstopper's become more popular, but like just from like the novels, Radio Silence is the most popular one. And I thought like this is definitely gonna be a good start to the year, and I wasn't one. By the way, I'm not gonna give like a in-depth synopsis about these books because I don't want to. I'm gonna talk about why I love them. But basically this one has a focus on friendships and mental health, and I really like how that was done. Also, theme you're gonna find throughout this entire list, the focus on mental health is gonna come back a couple of times, and the focus on friendship as well. But I really love the friendship between our main character and like the main friendship in it. I really love. I'm really bad at character names, so I apologize for that. But I really love that friendship, and I feel like that's my favorite relationship that I've read all year. And it's platonic. So it's not, I've read a bunch of romances this year, but still like none of them had me like as giddy as this friendship has. And I can't explain it really, because it feels the same as like reading a romance and like very much shipping people together, but like I don't ship these two people together. Like they're not romantically involved at all. I need that to be clear. I don't want them to be romantically involved at all, but it's still done so well, and it has, like I said, it has a great focus on mental health. It discusses it really well, and there's also like this podcast element to it, which I also really loved. I love the creative aspect of it, and just like this whole thing of just kind of being in this period where you're like leaving high school and starting college, like, or university, and like just being lost kind of. I really loved how that was discussed in this book. And yeah, it's fantastic, and I really desperately also want to read Alice Oseman's other novels, just haven't gotten around to it. Next up, we have the Desolations of Devil's Acre by Ransom Wicks. This is the last book in the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children series. It's been a journey. We started with a trilogy, and then all of a sudden we're like 3 more books. And I do have to say that I love the add-on more than the original trilogy, which I don't know how popular that opinion is because I haven't seen a lot of people read the add-on, but I really loved the direction that these add-on 3 books took the series in, and it kind of feels like it always was meant to be this way, because I reread all of the books like in lead up for the 5th book, and it just, you can tell like there are so many signs towards this storyline in that original trilogy that it kind of seems like it was always made to be that way. And I don't know if that generally was Ransom Wicks' intention while writing, or if that just is coincidentally. I really loved it. I really loved this as a conclusion to the series. I don't think it's my favorite in the series, but I do think that it wraps up the series phenomenally. I really love the direction it took the story, and how it still like expanded on the world, and how it just like explained everything and like wrapped things up. That was so well done. And I feel like that I believe it's I don't remember if it's a last chapter or it's the epilogue. I don't remember exactly, but like the last scene, let me just say it that way, that like just shows where all of these characters ended up. It is so perfect, and it made me cry, because I was like, yes, these people deserve this. Like they deserve it so much, because I've grown to care for these characters so much. And it's a phenomenal series, and I feel like it's the second half of the series has gone so underrated, which feels weird to say because like the original trilogy is such a staple of booktube, but the later books just don't get the same attention as the first part, and I feel like it's so good. And yeah, I'll have my series discussion for this also like linked in the eye above probably already appeared. Then next we have A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor by Hangui, which is another series finale, although this is the second book in the duology, so there's a little bit less on it. And I did really like An Absolutely Remarkable Thing back when I read that when it came out, but that was a 4 star. I saw some issues with it. This was so good. The main issue with An Absolutely Remarkable Thing was that I didn't really like our main character, and in this one we have a lot more main characters. We have all their perspectives, and I really love the way that this was written, and I feel like all of the perspectives like had very distinct voices, and I really like how that was done. This one is also more sci-fi than the first one. Like the first one, it just feels very contemporary, like this speculative thing to it. This one is very tech and very sci-fi, and I really loved that. I thought that was done really well. Hank Green is the only author that has made me be like, humanity is doomed, but we can fix it, you know? And I really love the themes that this book discusses. It goes like very much more in depth into things that were introduced in the first book, and it generally does feel like a level up from book 1, and I really love this book. Then next up we have Heartstopper Volume 4 by Alice Oseman, because of course this couldn't not be on this list. It's the release that came out this year in the series, and we're gonna have to wait. Although this one has like projected a release date for Volume 5 2023. The next chapter has started publishing on Tapas for free, so you can go read that if you want, but it will be a long wait till we have the volume wrapped up, which I totally get because Alice Oseman went through a wider burnout this past year, so I totally understand her taking the time, and I think it's long. This is not a diss on that. Like, I'm glad that they took time for their mental health. For Heartstopper Volume 4, I reread the entire series, and I read this volume, and I love it so much. It's so cute, and this one focuses a lot on mental health, so definitely look into like the content warnings of this book if you struggle with mental health, because it goes in depth about that. But it still manages to have this like hopeful and lighter tone to it, while still like conveying the seriousness of the mental health issues, which I really liked. I also really like the discussion in this book of like when it comes, because it is a love story, and like then for this one to focus on the mental health of like one character in that relationship. I also really liked how with the other character in the relationship, they really discuss like, hey, it's not your job to fix them. Like, you have to be there for them, you have to support them, yes, but like be careful that you don't lose yourself in them, because it's not your job to like fix them. Like, that's something you have to do on your own. And I really loved how that was done throughout this like volume, and I'm so obsessed with it. Like, I recently got like all the physical volumes. I read them on Tapas before, and then my volume was dropped, and like I so desperately want to reread the series because it is so good. I'm sorry if things look a little bit different, but I have to take a break. But moving on to the next book, which is probably my favorite on the list. I knew I said I wasn't gonna rank these, but if I had to pick a favorite of the year, it would probably be this one, and that's Perfect on Paper by Sophie Gonzalez. I read their debut, Only Mostly Devastated, back when it came out, and it was a 3-star for me. I wasn't crazy about it. It wasn't bad, but also just like wasn't too sure about it. But then this book was getting hyped up, and at first I wasn't that interested in it, but then I actually heard what it was about, and I was like, oh, this sounds like it was made for me. And it was. It was. I love it so much. We basically follow like a main character who has like this love advice thing going on at their school, but it's anonymous and nobody knows it's her. And then like this guy finds out that it's her, and he's like, hey, I want my ex back, you're gonna help me, or otherwise I'm gonna tell the rest of the school that it's you. She doesn't want other people to know. And it's the romance between them. It's so good. I also really love the bi-rep in this book because the main character is bisexual, and I really like Sophie Gonzalez talk about how she wrote this book, because in her first book she had a side character who was bi but was dating someone of the opposite gender, and then she got a lot of reactions of like, oh, it is a really queer rap, like bullshit like that. And like, so she was like, I am gonna write a book about an unapologetic bisexual character who ends up with someone of the same gender. I really love how that was a mindset going into this book, and it turned out so well. And it has a great discussions on biphobia. I really like that. It also has discussions around other aspects of queerness. And I really loved how it was done. And the romance was just everything. It hit so many tropes that I just absolutely adore. The only one that was missing was fake dating. but I can see past that, which is, it was so good. And it just genuinely made me happy. Like, I read this in a time where I was like very deep into a reading slump, and I just, reading wasn't something that was exciting me anymore, and I just had a hard time finding like joy in reading. And like, this book just did that, absolutely flew through this novel, and it made me so excited to like read other books, because I found that love again. And I always love books that do that just like remind you of why you love reading, and this one was that for me. Next up, we have one that I've actually seen on a lot of people's favorites list, and that's Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Definitely deservingly so, and because of reasons that I can't tell you because spoilers, it's definitely best going into this book knowing as little as possible, which is, there's this guy who is sending them into space for like this life-saving mission with like two other astronauts, but he ends up waking up, not remembering anything, and his other two like co-astronauts have passed. He didn't make it in the journey. So now we have to like figure out what's going on, and we have flashbacks into the past as our main characters also remembering things, and stuff happen, and it's so good. I typically don't like the amnesia trope. I hate it. It's one of the main reasons why I didn't really like the Captain Marvel movie, but this one did it so well. I really loved just like discovering things with our main character. It felt like we never knew more than our main character, we never knew less than our main character, and I really like that. I like how Andy Weir writes science. He goes so in depth about the science stuff, but like I still understand it, which is weird. And I feel like his novels feel very realistic because it is so grounded in like actual science, or like what seems like actual science, and I really love that. I might have not loved Artemis at all. That wasn't a great book, but I really enjoyed The Martian, and then this one is just superb. I know there's some people who still prefer The Martian over this book, but I prefer this book so much. It's so good. Then next up, we have Romancing Mr. Bridgerton by Julia Quinn. This was the year that I read the Bridgerton series and I binged it. Again, series discussion will be linked in the description as well as in the eye somewhere. Of course, I was able to only pick one book from the series, and I picked Romancing Mr. Bridgerton because that was my favorite by far. I just thought this was so cute. The romance between Penelope and Colin is just everything. I was squealing so much while reading this. I was genuinely so happy and so excited about everything in this book. I really love Penelope and Colin as well, just as characters on their own, even besides the romance. I loved how the romance just like was developed, how it was done. It was so good, and every single time any of them got mentioned in later books, the first thing that popped in my mind is like, oh my god, I need to reread Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. And I typically don't really want to reread a book till at least like a while after I read it. It was like immediately after I read it, was like, I need to reread this book. I need to re-experience it. And it also has a side storyline that was also just so amazingly done, and I really liked how it was balanced with the romance. And yeah, I really love this. Then moving on, we have The Shum Offensive by Alison Cochrane. I still haven't learned how to pronounce the last name. I'm so sorry. This is not a romance novel. It is adult, and it takes place in like this bachelor type setting. I really loved it. It's a male romance where basically the bachelor falls in love with like one of the producers that he's close to, and it's so good. Their romance is like everything. It's so good. This is another one that deals a lot with mental health, and I've seen a couple of people DNF this because they couldn't handle it. They didn't get a warning that it was so heavily dealt with mental health. So definitely, again, go check content warnings on this in case that's something you struggle with, because like this doesn't shy away from that. It's very much focuses on it. But I really also like how both of our main characters like deal with their own mental health issues, and throughout the book they both like take time like from the romance, I guess, to like deal with stuff going on with them mentally. And I really liked how it was done. I really liked how both of the characters discussed their mental health with each other, and how like even though they're experiencing different things, they still like kind of found this like support and like relatability in each other. And I really loved how it was done. I really liked the like reality show framing, and through this book, and that's something I realized I really like in books. I think that's just a really fun way to like frame a story, and I think this one did that really well. I also like how this like criticizes the reality dating show business without necessarily looking down on its viewers. I really love the characters. I like the romance. I even love like the contestants on the like show that were basically like competing for the love of the main character. even if none of them ended up being real love interest, I really liked still how they were developed and how it was done. Moving on, we have Caden Waiting by Becky Albertalli, which I only read in December, and I bought it when it came out because I'm a Becky Albertalli fan, but I was a bit scared to get into this book because I hadn't heard as many things about it as I typically do for Becky Albertalli books, but I still ended up reading it and I ended up loving it so much. I just feel like Becky Albertalli isn't for everyone, which I totally understand, but this is my second year in a row that she has made it on my favorites list, so yeah. I feel like the book that came out last year with Aisha Saeed was my absolute favorite of last year. I don't remember that exactly, but you can go check out that video because like I said, it will be linked down below. But I genuinely really love her books, and I feel like she knows how to write books that are just like made for me, that are full of like things I love and full of tropes I love, and this one was an exception to that. And this one again focuses a lot on friendship. It does have a romance story, it's a romance story, but it focuses a whole lot on the friendship between Kate and her best friend, and I really love how that was done. How even throughout parts they were a little bit more rough in their friendship, where they were fighting, they still like very much acknowledged like, you're my best friend and I absolutely love you, and even though like stuff are happening right now and it isn't easy, like just know I still love you. And I really loved that aspect to it. I also really liked the theater setting because this basically takes place as main character like putting on the school musical. It starts with them learning what the musical is, auditioning, it has rehearsals started, and then it ends with the premiere. And I really liked how that was used to like frame the story, as well as just like seeing these characters just like discuss what this love means for them, like this passion means for them. And I feel like it was very different for all of them, because even though you could say like, oh yeah, all of them, their passion is musical, all of them just had different aspects to it that they loved about it and why they like doing it. And I thought that was very interesting to see them talk about that. And yeah, I really loved this book. And lastly, we're wrapping up this list with the last book I read in this year. So we started this with the first book I read in 2021, and we ended this with the last book I read in 2021. This wasn't planned, but it turned out perfectly. And it's Dial A for Aunties by Jessica Cuser Tanto. If you've been on my channel for like the past couple of weeks, you know I absolutely adore this book. It's a ridiculous book, which is why I love it, because it never takes itself seriously, and I feel like the premise of it is so dark, but because it never takes itself seriously and constantly calls out when characters like have this reaction, they're like, is it seriously what you're thinking right now? It calls that out and it never takes itself like too seriously, and it just keeps the tone like very lighthearted and fun. And I laughed a whole lot throughout this book. I feel like this is definitely the funniest book I read all year, and I really love how it was done. I also really loved our main character, Maddie. She was an amazing main character, and I feel like that's why this book works so, because she was like very level-headed, and she was the one that called out a lot of like the ridiculous things that happened in this book as being ridiculous. And I feel like that helped like ground the story more in reality, even though as like very ridiculous things are happening. I loved her family. I think that dynamic was just so well done, and I just hilarious characters as well. Loved it has like this wedding framing to it, as Maddie and her family like run a wedding business. So it takes place in a wedding, and I really loved that framing to it. I feel like it added even more hijinks to what was already going on, the main storyline. And there's also again a romance to this that I liked. It was a very small part, but I still really liked how it was done. And overall, I just think if you want to have a good laugh, go read this book because it is so good. Those are my 10 favorite books of 2021. I would love to hear your favorites as well as your thoughts on these books. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. Good.